She lived in a small town where life moved slowly, and people often noticed little things about each other. From a distance, she might have seemed ordinary to anyone passing by. She did not wear bright colors or fancy clothes. Her hair was usually tied back simply, and she rarely wore makeup. She moved through life quietly, unnoticed by most, yet there was something about her that could not be ignored. There was a kind of calmness in the way she walked, the gentle way she smiled, and the patience that seemed to come naturally to her. Some people thought she was too simple, almost invisible, while others found her presence quietly comforting. In her neighborhood, she lived alone in a small, rented room above a bakery. The aroma of fresh bread often filled her mornings. She liked waking up early, before the world around her stirred too much. She would step outside to feel the cool morning air and watch the sun slowly rise over the distant hills. To her, these moments were perfect, even though no one else paid much attention to them. She would quietly enjoy her cup of tea while sitting by the window, observing people hurrying past, lost in their own busy lives. Despite her simplicity, she had a daily rhythm that others rarely noticed. She took pride in small things. The way she kept her clothes neatly folded, the way she cleaned her little room, the careful preparation of her meals. Everything was done with thought and care. She did not own many things, but she treated each possession as if it mattered. Her life might have looked ordinary to the outside world, but it had a kind of quiet order and beauty that only she truly appreciated. At the bakery where she worked part-time, she was always the first to arrive and the last to leave. She washed dishes carefully, cleaned counters until they shone, and arranged bread in the display cases in perfect order. The owner sometimes praised her quietly, but many of her co-workers never bothered. They would whisper among themselves, making jokes about her plain clothes and simple habits. They laughed when she chose to sit alone during lunch breaks instead of joining the group. "Why does she even bother dressing like that?" one of them would say. "She looks so plain," another would add. At first she felt a pang of hurt when she heard these words. She wondered why people could not see that there was more to a person than how they looked, or how flashy their clothes were. But over time she stopped letting their words bother her. She had learned that people often judged too quickly, and that their laughter was more about their own insecurities than about her. Instead of responding with anger or sadness, she focused on being herself, quietly and confidently. Even in small tasks, she had a kind of perfection that others rarely recognized. She noticed details that escaped everyone else: the way the flour dusted the counter, the exact placement of each loaf of bread, the way the sunlight fell through the bakery windows in the morning. She found joy in small accomplishments, and she knew that even these tiny details mattered in their own way. Sometimes, when she arranged the pastries just so, she would step back and smile quietly to herself, feeling a sense of pride that no one else would notice or comment on. Outside of work, she lived a simple life. She did not go to fancy parties or gatherings. She enjoyed reading books she borrowed from the small-town library, or walking along the quiet streets where children played and neighbors chatted. People sometimes noticed her and made comments, half in jest, half in curiosity. "She never wears bright colors," a neighbor would say. "Always so quiet, always so serious." But she did not mind. She had learned to be content with herself and to find happiness in the simple pleasures that others overlooked. Her friends were few, but those she had mattered deeply. They appreciated her honesty, her patience, and her calm presence. They knew that if they were in trouble, she would quietly help them without asking for anything in return. She never boasted or sought attention. To her, true kindness was not about being seen. It was about doing what felt right even if no one noticed. And though the world often mocked her simplicity, there was a quiet strength in her that people could not easily understand. One afternoon, as she walked home from work, she noticed a group of her co-workers sitting on a bench outside a cafe. They were laughing loudly, pointing at her as she passed. "Look at her shoes," one said. "Still wearing those old things?" Another laughed. "And that bag. She carries that everywhere. It looks ridiculous." She kept walking, her head held high, her expression calm. Inside, a small voice whispered in her heart, reminding her that their words did not define her. They could mock her appearance, but they could not mock her spirit. Her life was simple, yes, but it was full of quiet moments of beauty and satisfaction. She knew how to find joy in small things that others ignored: a freshly baked loaf of bread, a gentle breeze in the evening, the soft sound of birds in the morning. These were treasures to her. And she also knew that one day the people who laughed at her would see something they could not ignore. At work, a new project was announced that would require teamwork and dedication. Her coworkers immediately assumed she would not be able to contribute much. "She is too quiet," someone said. "She probably doesn't have any ideas worth listening to." But the bakery owner, who had watched her work quietly for months, believed otherwise. He had seen her attention to detail, her patience, and her ability to solve small problems without making a fuss, and he decided that she would play a key role in the project. When she heard the news, she did not feel excitement or fear. She simply nodded and prepared herself. She thought carefully about how to approach the work, planning each step in her mind. She did not rush, and she did not try to impress anyone. She only wanted to do the job well, to give it her best effort. Little did she know, this project would be the moment when everyone who had mocked her would finally see her true abilities. She went home that evening and sat by her small window, looking at the stars. She thought about the day, about the laughter and the whispers, and about the project ahead. Her heart was calm and her mind was clear. She knew that real strength was quiet. It did not shout for attention, and it did not demand recognition. It worked steadily, patiently, and with care. And she also knew that perfection was not about being flashy. It was about doing things well, with thought and dedication, no matter how small the task. The next morning, she arrived at the bakery before anyone else. The sunlight streamed through the windows, and she felt the familiar calm that always greeted her in the early hours. She organized her workspace, checked the ingredients carefully, and made a plan for the day. Her coworkers arrived one by one, chatting and joking as usual. Some noticed her, others ignored her, but she continued her work quietly, letting her actions speak louder than their words ever could. Throughout the day, she moved with a kind of quiet confidence that went unnoticed by most. She handled difficult tasks without complaint. She noticed things others missed. She solved small problems before they grew into bigger ones, and all the while she remained herself, unassuming, patient, and completely focused on doing her best. Even though people mocked her simplicity, she knew that her strength lay not in what others saw, but in what she quietly nurtured inside herself. By evening, the bakery looked perfect. Every loaf of bread, every pastry, every corner of the shop was clean and well arranged. The project she had been assigned was still in its early stages, but she had already started laying the groundwork, carefully planning and organizing. Her co-workers looked at her in passing, some with curiosity, some with doubt. They still did not understand her. They still saw only her simple clothes and quiet demeanor, but she knew that soon their laughter would fade, replaced by something else: respect, amazement, and perhaps even a little regret for having underestimated her. She walked home that night carrying a small bag of groceries. The streets were quiet and the stars shone above her. She smiled softly, thinking about the days ahead. She did not need the approval of others to feel worthy. She did not need loud praise to know that she was capable. In her heart, she carried a quiet confidence that came from knowing herself, from doing her best, and from understanding that simplicity was not weakness. And so, her story began, not with a grand announcement or a dramatic event, but with quiet patience, daily dedication, and a calm strength that others failed to notice. She moved through life steadily, unnoticed by most, mocked by some, but carrying within her the seeds of something extraordinary, something that would, in time, show the world that perfection could come from simplicity, and that true strength was often hidden in quiet, unassuming hearts. The days passed quietly, and she continued her work at the bakery with the same patience and attention to detail as always. Every morning she arrived before anyone else, preparing the workspace, checking ingredients, and making sure everything was in its proper place. Her co-workers continued their usual behavior, whispering, laughing, and sometimes even making direct jokes at her expense. Yet she never let it disturb her focus. She had learned long ago that people who mocked others often did so because of their own insecurities. It was not her responsibility to change them, only to live her life with dignity and care. One afternoon, the bakery owner called her aside. He had noticed her steady dedication and her ability to manage small problems before they grew. He handed her a folder filled with plans for the upcoming community fair, a major event that the bakery would be participating in. The fair would involve preparing large quantities of pastries, cakes, and other treats, organizing booths, and ensuring everything ran smoothly for visitors. For many of her coworkers, the task seemed overwhelming, but he trusted her to take the lead in a small but critical part of the project. She took the folder quietly, feeling neither excitement nor fear. She understood the responsibility she was being given, and she knew that this was an opportunity to show, not with words but with actions, what she was capable of. She studied the plans carefully, noting each detail, thinking through the steps she would need to take and imagining how she could make the process smoother for everyone. Her mind worked like a calm river, steady and thoughtful, never rushing, always considering what needed to be done. The next day, she began organizing her team for the fair preparations. She approached it gently, not commanding or shouting, but explaining tasks clearly and patiently. Many of her co-workers were surprised by how methodical she was. They had never seen her take charge before, and they were unsure how to respond. Some whispered among themselves, questioning whether she could handle the work. "She's too quiet for this," one said. "I don't think she can manage a project this big," another added. She did not respond to their doubts. Instead, she focused on her work, ensuring that everyone understood their tasks and that the necessary supplies were ready. She noticed small details that others overlooked, one missing ingredient here, an uneven arrangement of pastries there, and corrected them quietly, without making a scene. Her coworkers began to realize slowly and reluctantly that she was capable, though some still refused to admit it out loud. As the days went on, challenges began to appear. One morning, a shipment of flour arrived late, and the bakery was at risk of falling behind schedule. Her co-workers panicked, unsure how to manage the sudden problem. She remained calm, assessing the situation carefully. She rearranged the workflow, assigning tasks based on what could be done immediately and what could wait until the flour arrived. She moved among her co-workers, guiding them quietly but firmly, showing them that problems could be solved without chaos. Her quiet confidence began to draw attention. Some co-workers who had mocked her started watching closely, noticing her efficiency and calmness under pressure. They still did not understand how someone so simple in appearance could command such skill, but they could not deny the results. She had a way of seeing solutions that others missed, of noticing details that would make a difference, and of keeping everyone focused without raising her voice or demanding attention. At the same time, she faced subtle challenges in her personal life. Some neighbors continued to make jokes about her simplicity, and she occasionally overheard conversations mocking her at the market or on the streets. "She's always so plain," one neighbor said. "Does she ever try to look nice?" But she refused to let these words affect her spirit. She reminded herself that life was not about impressing others with appearances. Her worth was in her actions, her integrity, and the way she treated others. One evening, as she prepared for the fair, she noticed a small mistake in the schedule. A cake that needed to be decorated first had been listed last, which could cause delays. Most people would have ignored it or panicked when they realized, but she calmly adjusted the schedule and explained the change to her team. She even stayed late that night, carefully decorating a few cakes herself to ensure they met the highest standard. Her coworkers watched silently, some impressed, some begrudgingly beginning to respect her skills. Despite her growing influence, she remained humble. She never took credit for others' work, never demanded praise, and never boasted. She knew that true leadership was not about being seen or admired. It was about helping everyone achieve their best, even when others whispered about her behind her back. She continued to act with patience and care, showing through her actions that her simplicity was not a weakness but a quiet strength. The fair finally arrived, and the bakery booth became one of the highlights of the event. Visitors admired the neatly arranged pastries, the carefully decorated cakes, and the smooth operation of the booth. The owner of the bakery received compliments from visitors, praising the organization and the quality of the products. She watched from behind the counter, quietly ensuring everything ran smoothly, her heart calm and focused. She did not need recognition to feel satisfied. The success of the project itself was reward enough. Her co-workers were in awe. The same people who had mocked her were now following her lead, asking her advice and even complimenting her work. Some of them struggled to hide their surprise. "I didn't think she could do this," one whispered. "She's better than I imagined," another admitted almost reluctantly. She accepted their acknowledgement quietly without gloating, continuing to focus on her tasks and ensuring that everything was perfect. That evening, After the fair, she walked home alone, carrying a small bag of leftover supplies. The streets were quiet and the stars shone above. She reflected on the day, thinking about the challenges she had faced and the small victories she had achieved. She realized that her simplicity had not held her back. Instead, it had allowed her to remain focused, calm, and effective even under pressure. The mockery of others, once painful, now seemed insignificant compared to the satisfaction of doing her best. She also thought about the people who had doubted her. She did not feel anger or resentment toward them. Instead, she felt a quiet sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had proven her abilities without changing who she was. They had mocked her simplicity, but she had given them something far greater, proof that dedication, patience, and quiet strength could achieve results that no amount of showiness or noise could match. In the days following the fair, her reputation began to shift. People who had once ignored or laughed at her now came to seek her advice or assistance. The bakery owner trusted her with more responsibilities, knowing that she could handle complex tasks with ease. Even her co-workers began to rely on her guidance, though some still struggled to express their respect openly. She remained the same humble, simple person she had always been, showing through her actions that true excellence often comes quietly and unexpectedly. She also began to notice a change in herself. The confidence she had gained from successfully handling the fair allowed her to approach other tasks with a new sense of purpose. She did not feel the need to impress anyone, but she knew that she could trust herself to meet challenges with skill and patience. Her inner strength had grown, not through loud displays or recognition, but through consistent effort and careful attention to every detail of her work. One afternoon, a new challenge arrived unexpectedly. The bakery was asked to cater for a large private event, one that would require meticulous planning and flawless execution. Her co-workers, many of whom had doubted her in the past, looked to her for guidance. She calmly accepted the responsibility, analyzing the requirements, organizing the team, and preparing a step-by-step plan. Once again, she faced skepticism from those who had mocked her, but she did not waver. She knew that the results would speak for themselves, and she was ready to prove her abilities once more. As she worked on the preparations, she encountered small setbacks, missing ingredients, timing conflicts, and last-minute changes. Each time she handled the problem calmly and methodically. She communicated clearly with her team, reassigned tasks as needed, and even stepped in personally to ensure that critical steps were completed correctly. Her coworkers watched in silence, slowly realizing that her simplicity did not limit her, but allowed her to approach challenges with clarity and precision that others could not match. By the time the event arrived, everything was ready. The pastries were perfectly arranged, the cakes beautifully decorated, and the service smooth and professional. Guests complimented the bakery on the quality and presentation, and the owner expressed his gratitude for her leadership. She stood quietly at the back overseeing the operation, satisfied with the flawless execution. Once again, she had shown that her simplicity was not a weakness but a source of strength, patience, and excellence. That night, as she walked home under the quiet glow of streetlights, she reflected on the journey so far. She had faced mockery, doubt, and underestimation, yet she had never allowed these things to define her. She had worked quietly, patiently, and with dedication, proving her worth through her actions rather than words. The people who had once laughed at her simplicity had now witnessed her strength, skill, and perfection. And though she had earned recognition, she remained humble, knowing that true success was measured not by others' opinions but by one's own integrity and effort. She understood now more than ever that simplicity was not a limitation. It was a way of living that allowed her to focus, to remain calm under pressure, and to achieve results that others could not. She also knew that patience, care, and quiet perseverance could create impact far greater than any loud display or superficial effort. And as she settled into her small room that night, she felt a quiet satisfaction, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in her abilities, and unwavering in her commitment to excellence. The weeks after the fair passed quickly, and life at the bakery settled into a new rhythm. Yet for her, nothing was ordinary. Every task, every detail mattered. She approached her work with the same quiet determination, understanding that each small effort contributed to something bigger. Her coworkers still whispered behind her back, though the tone had changed slightly. They no longer laughed openly at her simplicity, Instead, some watched her with curiosity, others with a reluctant admiration that they did not yet fully understand. One morning, the bakery received news that a renowned food critic would visit for a special review. The owner was nervous, knowing that this could be a significant opportunity for the small business. He turned to her quietly, asking her to oversee the preparations. She accepted without hesitation, carefully reviewing each step that would be needed to impress the critic. Her calm presence immediately steadied the team, who had begun to rely on her guidance more than ever. As she examined the bakery, she noticed small areas that could be improved. The placement of pastries on display, the way the lighting highlighted certain shelves, the cleanliness of corners often overlooked. All of it mattered. She moved through the space methodically, rearranging, cleaning, and refining every detail. Her co-workers followed her instructions, some reluctantly at first, but gradually realizing that her suggestions made sense. Her quiet confidence made them listen, even if they could not yet fully express their respect. The morning of the critic's visit arrived. She woke early, preparing the bakery for the day ahead. She adjusted the lighting, made sure the aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air, and even took a few moments to perfect the decoration of the cakes. Every action was done with precision, yet with a calmness that never felt forced. She understood that perfection was not about rushing or overcomplicating things. It was about attention, care, and thoughtful execution. When the critic entered, the bakery seemed transformed. The pastries were arranged beautifully. The counters gleamed, and every detail spoke of dedication. Her co-workers watched nervously as he walked through, observing the displays, tasting the offerings, and taking notes. She remained in the background, ready to answer questions or adjust anything that needed attention, but mostly watching quietly, ensuring that everything ran smoothly. The critic spent hours evaluating the bakery, sampling various pastries and observing the workflow. He asked questions about the baking process, the ingredients, and the care taken in presentation. She answered each question calmly and confidently, explaining the methods used, the importance of quality, and the attention to detail that guided every step. Her simplicity and honesty impressed him. She did not try to overstate her skills or boast about the bakery's reputation. She simply shared the truth of her work and her dedication. Her co-workers were in awe. The same people who had once mocked her now observed her with disbelief. They had never realized that someone so quiet and unassuming could command such respect and convey such competence. Their previous laughter seemed shallow compared to the presence she now held. Some tried to hide their astonishment, while others struggled to understand how they had underestimated her for so long. After the critic left, he spoke privately with the bakery owner. He praised not only the quality of the pastries, but also the organization, the cleanliness, and the professionalism displayed by the team. He specifically mentioned her calm efficiency and thoughtful guidance, highlighting that someone had clearly taken care to ensure everything was perfect. The owner felt a quiet pride, knowing that he had recognized her potential early, and that she had risen to the occasion without seeking recognition or praise. Word of the critic's visit spread quickly throughout the town. People began to speak of the bakery differently, admiring the attention to detail, the quality of the products, and the smooth operation. Many who had previously mocked her simplicity were forced to reconsider their opinions. They began to see her not as someone plain or ordinary, but as someone capable, diligent, and quietly exceptional. The shift in perception was slow but noticeable, and it brought a sense of satisfaction to those who had observed her growth from the beginning. Even with this growing recognition, she remained unchanged. She did not let praise alter her behavior or her focus. Her work continued with the same careful attention and quiet determination as before. She understood that recognition was fleeting, but the value of consistent effort and dedication endured. Every cake, every pastry, every corner of the bakery was a reflection of her commitment to doing things well, no matter who noticed or praised it. One evening, a new challenge arose. The bakery was asked to participate in a large regional competition where businesses from different towns would showcase their skills and creativity. The stakes were high, and many competitors were well-funded and highly experienced. Her co-workers were nervous, doubting whether their small bakery could compete. Once again, the owner turned to her for guidance. Knowing that her calm efficiency could make the difference, she accepted the responsibility without hesitation. immediately beginning to plan for the competition. She analyzed the rules, studied the requirements, and created a strategy that would highlight the bakery's strengths. She assigned tasks carefully, making sure each team member understood their role and could perform it to the best of their ability. She anticipated potential problems and devised solutions in advance. Her co-workers watched as she worked, some silently impressed, others quietly learning from her methods. As the competition approached, tension in the bakery increased. People became anxious about deadlines, presentation, and the quality of their products. She noticed the stress around her and responded with calm reassurance. She encouraged her coworkers, reminding them of their abilities and guiding them through the preparation process step by step. Her quiet presence and steady guidance created a sense of order amid the chaos. Even those who had doubted her before began to see the value of her simplicity, patience, and attention to detail. The day of the competition arrived, and the bakery traveled to the event with all their products prepared. The competition hall was filled with impressive displays, brightly decorated booths, and competitors eager to impress. She remained composed, ensuring that their presentation was flawless, their products arranged neatly, and their team prepared to answer questions. She did not seek attention, but her calm efficiency was evident to anyone who observed closely. During the judging process, the panel of experts examined each display carefully, tasting products and evaluating presentation, creativity, and overall quality. When they reached the bakery, they were immediately struck by the precision and care evident in every detail. She answered questions about the ingredients, the preparation process, and the reasoning behind each design choice. Her clear and thoughtful explanations, combined with the high quality of the products, left the judges impressed. Her co-workers, who had once laughed at her simplicity, now watched in awe. They saw her quiet leadership, her careful planning, and her ability to inspire and guide the team without raising her voice. They realized that her simplicity was not a limitation, but a strength, allowing her to focus, observe, and act with clarity and precision. Their previous mockery seemed shallow and unnecessary in comparison to the respect she now commanded. When the results were announced, the bakery had achieved one of the highest recognitions of the competition. The judges praised not only the products but also the organization, teamwork, and leadership that had brought everything together. Her coworkers struggled to hide their surprise and admiration, recognizing for the first time the depth of her abilities. They began to understand that the quiet, simple person they had mocked had orchestrated an extraordinary achievement. Despite the recognition, she remained humble. She did not seek praise, did not boast, and did not allow the success to change her behavior. She knew that true strength and excellence were not about being noticed or admired. They were about consistency, dedication, and integrity. She continued to work with the same quiet focus, ensuring that every task was done well, every detail attended to, and every challenge approached with care. In the days following the competition, she reflected on how far she had come. She had faced mockery, doubt, and underestimation, yet she had remained true to herself. She had shown through her actions that simplicity was not weakness and that quiet dedication could achieve extraordinary results. She had transformed the perception of those around her, not by changing who she was, but by demonstrating what she was capable of. She also recognized that the journey was not over. Each challenge, each task, and each opportunity was a chance to continue growing, learning, and proving herself. She approached her work with renewed determination, understanding that perfection was not a destination but a process, built through consistent effort, patience, and careful attention to detail. Her life remained simple, but it had gained a new depth. The respect and recognition she had earned did not make her arrogant or boastful. Instead, it reinforced her belief that true strength came from within. She continued to find joy in small moments. The aroma of fresh bread, the quiet morning streets, the satisfaction of a task completed well. Her simplicity, once mocked, had become a source of power, allowing her to navigate challenges with calm confidence and achieve results that others could not. And so, her story continued, moving steadily toward something greater. She had faced doubt and mockery, yet she had responded not with anger or defiance, but with quiet determination and unwavering focus. The turning point had come, revealing her hidden talents, her careful planning, and her extraordinary ability to inspire and guide others. She had begun to show the world that perfection could emerge from simplicity, and that true strength often lay in those who moved quietly, patiently, and with thoughtful care. After the competition, life seemed to shift for her, though she herself remained unchanged. She continued her work at the bakery with the same quiet focus and careful attention. But the world around her had begun to notice. People who had once mocked her simplicity now spoke of her with a tone of admiration and, in some cases, surprise. They could not understand how someone so humble, so unassuming, had achieved what she had, and yet the results were undeniable. She had proven that simplicity was not a weakness, and that careful, patient effort could surpass the flashy, loud displays that often received attention. Her next challenge came unexpectedly. The bakery was asked to cater for a high-profile local event attended by influential people from nearby towns. The scale was much larger than anything they had done before, and the pressure was intense. Many of her co-workers began to panic, unsure how they could meet the high standards expected. Some looked at her with a mixture of hope and doubt, remembering the quiet, competent leader she had been during previous projects. The bakery owner, confident in her abilities, once again entrusted her with managing the preparations. She accepted the responsibility calmly, as she always did, and began to organize the tasks meticulously. She divided responsibilities based on the strengths of each team member, anticipating potential problems and planning solutions in advance. Even those who had once mocked her found themselves relying on her guidance. They followed her instructions, realizing that her quiet confidence and careful planning were exactly what the bakery needed to succeed. Every day she worked tirelessly. She arrived early, stayed late, and oversaw every detail of the preparation. She noticed things that others overlooked: the exact temperature needed for a batch of pastries, the alignment of plates on a serving tray, the timing of multiple tasks to ensure smooth execution. Her attention to these small details ensured that nothing was left to chance. She quietly corrected mistakes without blaming anyone, showing her team that patience and careful guidance were far more effective than criticism or panic. Her co-workers began to change as they observed her. Those who had once whispered and laughed at her now approached her for advice. They noticed her calm efficiency and realized that her simplicity was actually her greatest strength. She did not need to raise her voice or demand attention. Her actions spoke louder than words, and her results were undeniable. Slowly, they began to respect her, not just for her skill, but for the integrity, patience, and quiet leadership she demonstrated every day. As the day of the event approached, the pressure intensified. Unexpected challenges arose, including a shortage of certain ingredients and last-minute changes in the menu requested by the organizers. Many would have panicked, but she remained calm. She quickly assessed the situation, adjusted the plans, and communicated clearly with her team. She even stepped in personally to help where needed, whether it was decorating a cake, arranging pastries, or ensuring that timing and presentation were perfect. The event day arrived and the bakery booth was ready. The presentation was flawless. Every pastry, every cake, every display was arranged with precision. Guests began to arrive, and their reactions were immediate. They admired the organization, the quality, and the beauty of the presentation. The bakery owner received compliments and thanks, praising the attention to detail and the seamless operation of the booth. And through it all, she moved quietly among her team, overseeing, guiding, and making small adjustments, never seeking the spotlight but ensuring that everything ran perfectly. Her co-workers could hardly believe what they were witnessing. The same people who had once mocked her simplicity now saw her in a completely different light. They saw someone capable, meticulous, and unwavering in her commitment to excellence. Some tried to hide their astonishment, while others could not resist expressing their admiration. "I didn't think she could manage all this," one whispered. "She's incredible," another admitted. For the first time, they recognized that their previous judgments had been wrong. As the event continued, it became clear that the bakery's efforts were being noticed more than ever. Influential guests asked questions, complimented the work, and even inquired about the methods used to achieve such perfection. She answered with calm confidence, explaining the process in simple, honest terms. She did not exaggerate or boast. She simply shared the truth of her work, and her dedication spoke for itself. The guests were impressed not just by the pastries, but by the careful thought, organization, and skill that went into every detail. By the end of the event, It was evident that the bakery had stood out among many others. The owner was proud, the guests were impressed, and her coworkers were in awe. Some of them could hardly believe that someone so simple, so quiet, and so unassuming had orchestrated such a flawless outcome. The people who had once mocked her now faced a truth they could not deny. They had underestimated her, and she had given them a lesson in patience, diligence, and quiet perfection. Even with this success, she remained humble. She did not let praise or recognition change her. She continued to approach each task with the same care and attention, understanding that true success is measured not by applause but by integrity, effort, and results. She continued to work patiently, never seeking the spotlight, knowing that her focus and dedication were what truly mattered. Her co-workers began to change as well. They began to understand the value of quiet strength and careful effort. Some of them started to adopt her methods, learning to observe details they had previously ignored, to approach tasks calmly rather than rushing, and to value patience over haste. She did not push them to change. Instead, her example inspired them, showing that consistent effort and humility could achieve results far greater than arrogance or noise. Over the following weeks, the bakery continued to gain recognition. Local media mentioned the successful event and praised the attention to detail and quality of the products. People began visiting the bakery more often, curious to see the work of the person who had managed such an extraordinary result. Her co-workers, once dismissive, now spoke of her with respect, and the owner relied on her more than ever. Yet through it all, she remained herself, quiet, humble, and devoted to her work. She reflected often on the journey that had brought her to this point. She remembered the times she had been mocked, laughed at, and underestimated. She remembered the whispers and jokes about her simplicity. And yet, she also remembered how she had faced those challenges, with patience, diligence, and quiet determination. She understood that her simplicity had been her greatest strength, allowing her to remain focused, calm, and effective even when others doubted her. Her life continued in this rhythm of quiet achievement and growing recognition. Every day presented new challenges, but she met each one with steady confidence. She continued to find joy in small details: the smell of fresh bread, the arrangement of pastries, the smile of a satisfied customer. She did not need applause or admiration to feel fulfilled. Her satisfaction came from doing her best and knowing that her efforts had created something meaningful. Through it all, she remained a model of humility and quiet excellence. She never boasted about her success, never sought attention, and never allowed recognition to define her worth. She understood that true perfection was not about being noticed or admired. It was about integrity, consistency, and care. She continued to inspire those around her, showing that even in a world that often valued showiness and noise, quiet, simple dedication could create extraordinary results. Her journey also taught her that patience and resilience were as important as skill. She had faced ridicule and doubt, yet she had not allowed them to shake her confidence. Instead, she focused on her work, approached challenges thoughtfully, and let her actions speak louder than words. In doing so, she had transformed not only her own life but also the perception of those around her. The bakery continued to thrive under her guidance. Each event, each project, each challenge became an opportunity to demonstrate the power of careful planning, attention to detail, and quiet leadership. Her co-workers, once dismissive, had grown to respect her abilities and her integrity. They began to understand that simplicity did not mean weakness, and that patience and dedication could produce results far greater than flashiness or arrogance. In the evenings, she often walked home slowly, reflecting on the day. The quiet streets, the soft glow of streetlights, and the distant stars offered her a sense of peace. She thought about the people who had doubted her, and realized that their opinions had never mattered. What mattered was the effort she put into her work, the care she took with each task, and the integrity with which she approached every challenge. Her triumph was not loud or showy, but it was complete. She had taken the mockery of others and transformed it into a testament to patience, dedication, and quiet excellence. She had faced challenges that seemed impossible, and handled them with calm precision. And through it all, she had remained herself, humble, simple, and devoted to her work. She had proven that perfection could come from simplicity, and that true strength was often found in those who moved quietly, patiently and with careful attention. The people who had mocked her now had no choice but to recognize her skill, her dedication, and her extraordinary ability to achieve results without fanfare. And so, her story of triumph became a quiet legend in her town. She continued her work with the same calm diligence, inspiring others not through words or showiness but through action. She had given everyone who doubted her a lesson in humility and respect, showing that sometimes the most unassuming people can achieve the most remarkable things. After her triumph at the local event, her life took on a new rhythm, yet she remained the same humble, quiet person she had always been. Recognition and respect had grown around her, but she did not let it change who she was. She continued to arrive early at the bakery, to prepare each detail carefully and to help her co-workers patiently. She understood that her work was not about applause or praise, it was about integrity, effort, and doing things well. Word of her abilities spread beyond the town. Small businesses and local organizations began seeking her advice and help for events, knowing that her guidance could turn ordinary efforts into perfection. People who had once dismissed her or mocked her simplicity now reached out with requests, questions, and even admiration. She treated everyone the same way, calmly, patiently, and with a willingness to help, never using her skills to boast or dominate, but always to improve the work and outcomes of those around her. Her co-workers continued to change as they observed her. Some who had once whispered cruel jokes began to adopt her careful, patient approach. They learned to pay attention to details they had overlooked, to communicate clearly, and to handle challenges calmly rather than rushing or panicking. Her example taught them something far more valuable than criticism ever could, that quiet dedication and integrity could achieve more than arrogance or showiness. Even the bakery owner noticed a transformation in the team. He observed how his employees were working more efficiently, more thoughtfully, and with a greater sense of pride in their work. He realized that her influence had spread far beyond her own tasks, quietly shaping the culture of the workplace. He often thought about how lucky he had been to recognize her talent early, even when others could not see it. Despite all the recognition, she remained grounded. She still enjoyed simple pleasures, the quiet streets in the morning, the smell of fresh bread, the gentle warmth of the sun through her window. She still took the time to prepare her meals carefully, to arrange her small living space neatly, and to read quietly in the evenings. Her life had grown in significance and impact, but its essence remained the same: simple, thoughtful, and focused on doing what was right. One day, the bakery received a special invitation. A renowned culinary school wanted her to lead a workshop for young bakers, teaching them the importance of attention to detail, patience, and thoughtful execution. Many of her co-workers were surprised. They had never imagined that someone so quiet and simple could be asked to teach others at such a high level. She accepted the invitation with her usual calm demeanor, seeing it as another opportunity to share her experience and help others grow. During the workshop, she demonstrated every step carefully, explaining why each action mattered. She encouraged the students to focus on patience and precision, to respect their work, and to take pride in even the smallest details. Her simplicity and clarity made her lessons easy to understand, and the students quickly realized that there was power in her quiet approach. They listened closely, absorbing her words and example, realizing that perfection could come from careful, consistent effort, not just talent or flair. After the workshop, many students approached her, expressing their admiration and gratitude. They had come expecting instruction, but they left inspired by the calm confidence, humility, and quiet strength she displayed. She accepted their thanks modestly, emphasizing that true success was not about recognition but about care, effort, and integrity. She did not seek praise, but she was glad to know that her example had encouraged others to approach their work thoughtfully and with dedication. Her journey continued to unfold in both expected and unexpected ways. The bakery flourished under her guidance, events went smoothly, and her influence on her co-workers grew steadily. She had transformed not only the perception of those who had once mocked her, but also the environment around her, shaping a culture of patience, diligence, and respect. She understood that leadership and influence were not about being loud or commanding, but about quietly setting an example through consistent, careful action. Even outside of work, her life became a source of inspiration. People in the community began to notice her steady presence, her willingness to help quietly, and her ability to handle challenges without drama. Those who had laughed at her simplicity learned to respect her for her integrity and the results she achieved. They began to realize that she had given them something far greater than the occasional performance of skill. She had shown them how to live with patience, dedication, and calm confidence. Despite all this attention, she continued to live modestly. She did not chase material wealth, social status, or popularity. Her happiness came from simple accomplishments, from knowing that her work had meaning and from helping others achieve their best. She continued to rise early, to move through her day thoughtfully, and to approach every task with care. Her simplicity was no longer seen as a flaw by those around her, but as a quiet strength that made her extraordinary. One evening, as she walked home after closing the bakery, she reflected on the path that had brought her here. She thought about the early days when she had been mocked and underestimated. She remembered the laughter, the whispers, and the judgment of others. She realized that those experiences had taught her patience and resilience, preparing her for the opportunities that would later reveal her true abilities. What had once felt like humiliation now felt like a necessary step in her journey, a step that had shaped her character and strengthened her resolve. She also reflected on the lessons she had learned herself. She understood that true success was not about seeking recognition or impressing others, but about integrity, care, and effort. She knew that patience, humility, and quiet determination could achieve results far beyond what others might expect. She understood that simplicity was not a limitation, but a strength that allowed her to focus, observe, and act thoughtfully. And she knew that her actions had not only changed her own life, but had influenced those around her, inspiring them to approach their work and their lives with greater care and respect. In her community, people began to talk about her differently. Parents spoke of her as a role model for their children. Young bakers sought her advice. Neighbors who had once laughed at her simplicity now greeted her with respect. She had become a quiet legend in her town, not because of flashy displays or loud accomplishments, but because of the consistency, care, and quiet excellence she demonstrated every day. Yet she never allowed this recognition to define her. She remained humble, focused on the work itself rather than the praise it might bring. She understood that her true reward was not in accolades or admiration, but in the knowledge that she had given her best, that she had acted with integrity, and that she had helped others achieve their best as well. She had transformed mockery into respect, doubt into confidence, and simplicity into a source of power that could not be ignored. Her influence continued to grow quietly, affecting both her co-workers and the wider community. People learned from her example that patience, careful planning, and dedication could overcome challenges that seemed insurmountable. They realized that success was not always about being the loudest or the most extravagant, but about consistent effort, thoughtful action, and unwavering focus. She had shown them that perfection could emerge from simplicity, and that quiet strength could achieve extraordinary results. As the years passed, she continued her work with the same dedication and care. She managed events, oversaw the bakery, guided her co-workers, and inspired those who sought her advice. Her life remained simple, but it was rich with meaning and accomplishment. She had achieved recognition and respect without ever compromising her values, her humility, or her focus on what truly mattered. In her quiet moments, she often reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the laughter, the mockery, and the doubt, and she smiled softly, understanding that each challenge had been a lesson, each insult a test of patience, and each moment of doubt an opportunity to demonstrate her quiet strength.